The champagne hit Maya before she understood what was happening. One moment she was standing between an elderly woman and the woman in the red dress, arms slightly out, voice steady, asking everyone to please calm down. The next, the glass tilted, and cold liquid poured across her face, her hair, her black uniform vest, and the polished marble floor of Harrington and Vale's most prestigious flagship store. The crowd that had gathered in the accessories hall went completely silent. Maya stood perfectly still with champagne dripping from her chin and looked at the woman in the red dress with an expression that was not anger and not tears, but something much quieter and much more permanent. She had made a decision, and so had everyone watching. Before we continue, if you believe that cruelty always carries a price and that the people who speak up for others are never truly standing alone, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Loyal Hearts, and share it with someone who deserves to hear a story like this today. Tell us where you're watching from, because this community stretches across the world, and every comment is a reminder that compassion connects us all. Maya Chen had worked at Harrington and Vale for 3 years. She was 29, precise, and genuinely good at her job. She had memorized the entire accessories inventory, could identify a client's preferred aesthetic within the first 90 seconds of conversation, and had never once raised her voice on the sales floor. She had taken the position not because it was her dream, but because her mother had taken ill the same year Maya finished her degree, and the stable hours and benefits had made it the right choice at the right time. She did not complain about this. She simply worked, paid her mother's medical bills, and planned for a future that felt slightly farther away than she would have liked. The day had been ordinary until Irene arrived. Yes, now, Proda. Irene Caldwell was 68 years old and had the particular manner of a woman who had spent decades putting others at ease. She was small, dressed neatly in a pale gray cardigan and sensible shoes, and she moved through the accessories hall with the careful attention of someone who had saved specifically for this occasion. She was looking for a handbag. Her granddaughter's graduation was in 10 days, and Irene had decided that this year, for the first time in a long time, she was going to walk in somewhere beautiful and buy exactly what she wanted without apologizing for looking. Maya had noticed her immediately and gone to help. She had spent 20 minutes walking Irene through the options, genuinely enjoying the conversation when the atmosphere in the hall shifted. Celeste Harrow arrived the way she always arrived, loudly and ahead of anyone who might slow her down. She was 38, dressed in a red mini dress that had probably cost more than Maya's monthly salary, and she had the practiced confidence of someone who had never once been told no in an environment that considered itself upscale. She swept through the hall with her assistant trailing behind her and stopped near the display Irene and Maya were standing at. She did not ask to pass. She simply reached across Irene to examine a bag that had caught her eye, knocking the item Irene had been holding out of her hands. Irene bent to pick it up. Celeste turned to her assistant and said loudly enough for the surrounding staff and customers to hear that she thought the store had a problem with people wandering in off the street touching merchandise they had no intention of purchasing. She glanced at Irene's cardigan and worn shoes as she said it, making sure the observation landed exactly where she aimed it. Then she turned to Maya and asked her why floor staff allowed this kind of person to linger near the premium displays. Maya asked, politely and clearly, what specifically Celeste was referring to. Celeste said she was referring to the fact that the elderly woman had been holding the same bag for 20 minutes without purchasing it, and that she believed she had seen her try to put something inside her own handbag while no one was watching. It was not true. Maya had been standing beside Irene for every one of those 20 minutes. She said so. B.P.S. to as. The store manager, a man named Gerald who had worked at Harrington and Vale for 11 years and understood exactly how much Celeste Harrow's family spent there annually, appeared at Maya's side within 90 seconds. He did not ask what had happened. He did not look at the security footage. He placed a hand briefly on Maya's arm and told her, in a voice just below the threshold of what Celeste could hear, that she should step back and allow him to handle this. Maya looked at Irene, who was standing very still with her hands folded in front of her, not defending herself, not arguing, wearing the expression of someone who has experienced this particular humiliation before and knows that protest rarely helps. Maya did not step back. Bach, Manon, T. Apasses, is at, Abai. She told Gerald, at full volume, that she had been present for the entire interaction, that she had witnessed nothing that resembled theft, and that she was not comfortable allowing a customer to be publicly accused without evidence. Celeste turned from the display. Her expression was no longer casually contemptuous. It was focused. She told Maya that she did not believe service staff were paid to have opinions. She picked up her champagne glass from the nearby display ledge where her assistant had set it, looked directly at Maya, and poured it over her head. The hall went silent in the way that places go silent when something crosses a line that cannot be uncrossed. Gerald fired Maya on the spot. He told her to collect her belongings and leave the floor. He told Irene that the store apologized for the inconvenience and offered her a small gift card. Celeste smiled and returned her attention to the bag display. Several customers looked at the floor. One or two walked away. Nobody said anything. Maya wiped her face with the back of her hand, removed her name badge, and placed it on the counter beside the register. She picked up her small bag from the staff area, walked to where Irene was still standing, and quietly asked whether she was all right. Irene looked at her with an expression that combined gratitude and grief in equal measure, and said she was fine. Yeah. Maya told her she was sorry. Irene told her she had nothing to apologize for. They walked toward the main entrance together, and promised to store, and added as the ADA as a founding brain of the ADA. The doors opened before they reached them. The woman who stepped through wore a fitted charcoal blazer and moved with the specific ease of someone who owned the room they were walking into, because in this case, she literally did. Her name was Diana Caldwell, and she was the founding partner and majority owner of Harrington and Vale, a position she had held for 7 years following a decade of building the retail group from a single boutique concept into one of the most recognized luxury brands in the country. She had grown up watching her mother, Irene, work 2 jobs to pay for Diana's business education. She had bought her mother a standing invitation to shop at any Harrington and Vale location whenever she pleased, because it was one of the smallest ways she knew to give back something she could never fully repay. Diana saw Irene first. Then she saw the champagne on the employee standing beside her. Gerald understood what was happening approximately 4 seconds after Diana crossed the floor. Celeste understood it roughly 6 seconds after that, when Diana stopped in front of them, looked at the name badge on the counter, looked at Maya, and asked Gerald what had occurred on her sales floor in the past 30 minutes. Gerald began to explain. Diana listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she asked Celeste to please return her store card, effective immediately, as Harrington and Vale would no longer be accepting her business at any of its locations. The extencations at any of its location. She told Gerald that he was suspended pending a full review of the incident and of his decision-making conduct. Jum. She turned to Maya, who was still standing with champagne drying in her hair, and told her that her position was reinstated with immediate effect, that she would receive full pay for the shift, and that Diana would personally like to speak with her about a floor supervisor role that had been open for the past month. Then Diana turned to her mother. They hired of common, all the brace of commendations. Irene had not moved from where she was standing. Her hands were still folded in front of her. Her expression had not changed significantly, except that something in her eyes had shifted, not triumph, not satisfaction, but something closer to relief. The exhausting work of staying dignified in rooms that tried to diminish you had, for once, not fallen entirely on her own shoulders. Diana took her mother's hands in both of hers and said only that she was sorry she had not been there sooner. Irene told her she was there now, and that was enough. Celeste left the store without her purchase. The hall returned slowly to the ordinary sounds of commerce and conversation. A junior sales associate quietly mopped the floor where the champagne had fallen. Maya accepted a clean uniform shirt from the back office and returned to the sales floor within the hour. She did not ask for acknowledgement. She helped the next customer who needed assistance and answered their questions with the same careful attention she brought to every interaction. She had always known that the floor she stood on every day was built by people who believed service deserved dignity. Now she also knew that the woman who had built it was the same woman who had stood quietly beside her at the door. Some things do not need to be announced to be understood. They simply need to be witnessed. If this story reminded you that courage does not require permission, please like this video, share it with someone who has ever been dismissed in a room full of people who looked the other way, and subscribe to Loyal Hearts. Your support is how stories like this reach the people who may need them most today. And before you go, leave one word in the comments that you believe every person deserves to feel when they walk into any room, regardless of what they're wearing or how much they're carrying. Because the most expensive thing in any store is never on a shelf. It is the dignity of the person who greets you at the door.